Hello there everyone, it's Malcolm Boudin here from MNB Networks. Today I'm going to do a short video because I've not done one for a while, just to show you how we would or could design remote access into managing a FortiGate. We can do this in a number of different ways and it does depend on the topology that you're using, so I'm going to draw something out a little bit different than you might have seen before and explain a few different ways how we can then access a FortiGate via the web interface. There are also ways that we can access the device via SSH, but we'll not cover that today other than we'll just give a brief overview. So first of all, what we're going to do is just build the topology. Here are some shapes. I'm just going to copy these, which have been identified as the shapes that we're going to use on the topology. So if I paste them into Lucidchart, I'm going to show you how quickly I can put this together. This cloud is going to be the internet cloud. So all I'll do here is put some text in the middle of the cloud saying that that is the internet. We then have some general users that might VPN or whatever into the environment, and we'll come back to those later on. Here we have a small Teltonika router, which is a 4G router. And 4G routers, you can get them from different manufacturers at the lower end of the market, or you can get the higher end of the market. So there's different vendors such as Teltonika, Cradle Point, and a few different other ones that you can get, like 4 or 5G cellular dongles, which are configured into routers. So you might actually ask what we're doing here in this particular design, and what we're actually doing is trying to access a network which has, let's just say, multiple routers that are all connected here at the back end. Doesn't really matter what the routers are used for, but let's say they're configured at the back end and we want to manage this whole domain. I meant to drag a shape on there, so let me do that. We want to manage this whole domain here, which is shown, and we'll just send that to the back. Little tip on how to do that in Lucidchart. Okay, so how do we build this out and what do we actually want to do? Ultimately, we want to manage all the routers in the background, but what we're going to focus on in this video is how we could manage this particular FortiGate. So this device over here, we want to manage it via the web interface, so the FortiGate interface, and we have a number of different ways that we can do that. So I'm going to show a few demonstrations. Okay, if we connect the Teltonika to the internet, this could be via a wired connection or a 4G connection. So it doesn't really matter as long as it's connected to the internet. It gives us a plethora of different ways that we can actually connect in to this environment. We're only going to demonstrate a few different ways in this particular video, but we might talk about some of the different ways that you can do it, and you can perhaps set up a lab environment and test it out yourself. What we're actually going to do is connect as this particular user into the FortiGate web interface, and we will demonstrate this in 2 or 3 different ways. So one way is that we can get onto a probe or a server which is connected directly into this environment. So if I look for a server, any kind of server, this is an AWS generic server, but let's just say it was a server and it's connected into the FortiGate. We'll set this line type to have no arrow, and then set that as the default. We can do that somewhere. Set as default. We do it here. Set default style. Okay, so if we draw any lines in the future, then that's what the line will look like without the arrows. Okay, so we can probably just put the switch in here in this managed environment for the time being and delete this line. Okay, so what we want to get to is this device here. And if we talk about what we have in this environment, or on the FortiGate I should say, we have a couple of different interfaces. We have the WAN interface here, and we have the LAN interface, and how we actually manage the device can either be on the WAN interface, the LAN interface, and we might actually have a DMZ interface off to the side, which we're not going to use today, but you might actually want to manage it from another jump server, which is over here, but we'll cover that perhaps another time. It's not for this video. So this user needs to be able to manage this FortiGate firewall. Let's talk about a few different ways that we can actually achieve this. Okay, so the first device that we want to manage is this one here. So this one highlighted in the yellow background, so it's this Fortinet FortiGate. And the one that we're going to manage is this one here. We have a couple up in our environment at the moment, so I'm going to just click here and configure or connect to the device via remote access. And we've not yet upgraded this FortiGate's operating system or anything like that. So yeah, we are logged in to the Fortinet appliance, and we can do it that way. The next mechanism I'm going to show you how to access the FortiGate over HTTPS is by coming in as a user, and the Teltonika device or the 4G router is going to be configured to have a HTTPS session that can be generated from this device to the FortiGate outside interface. The caveat to this is that the FortiGate has to be configured to be able to accept and be scanned for HTTPS or SSH or however you want to actually achieve this on the particular interface that's connected directly from the Teltonika or to the Teltonika LAN device. So this is a 4G connection to the internet. It's a wired LAN cable to the outside of the FortiGate, and that's the interface that we want to manage the device on. Okay, so if we go to the Teltonika management platform, this is a centralized management platform from Teltonika that you have to pay for the additional functionality rather than just managing the device itself. What we're going to do in this part of the demo is set up a remote management session for this user that's on the internet to be able to manage this FortiGate, but using the Teltonika mechanism in order to do that. So instead of where we went to FortiCloud before, as shown in the previous demonstration, what we're going to do now is use the Teltonika capability to do something similar. What we'll do is we'll demonstrate it with remote SSH, the feature is called, but we can also do remote HTTPS. The main difference being is that what you'll see here is the remote session will open up in an SSH window, but we can also do the same with a remote HTTPS web interface so that we can see the FortiGate management screen like this. But we will demonstrate remote SSH and show you how easy it is to do this in the Teltonika environment. So we click add new remote, and what we have to do here is search for the devices. So if we click on this link, we have a couple of different devices, and I just know that we're going to be using this particular device, MNBC TRT01. The next thing that we do is we scan the device and we look at the interfaces as to the different things that are connected. And remember, we're doing a remote SSH session setup. So we're coming in as a user, but we're actually going somewhere over here to the Teltonika RMS management platform, which then talks to the Teltonika device, and it's through that mechanism that we can then say, okay, we know the 10.253.0.232 is the firewall, we want to have an SSH session, and that is it. We add that functionality and close that dialog box, and then we have this session here. Now, you can see here that we have the IP address 10.253.0.232 on port number 22. We didn't put a router description in or anything like that, and it's under the company name MNB Networks and all that kind of stuff. That's when the remote SSH session was connected. You see, if we go to remote HTTPS, we would have something similar there if we had set up the same kind of thing for that. Same goes for remote desktop, remote telnet, SFTP. So we have different types of protocols that we can use here. So going back to the SSH, this session has still been set up. If we click on this, it means that we can then generate a secure path into the FortiGate. One of the things we need to make sure is that the FortiGate can accept SSH connections in on the WAN 1 interface, which you might or might not have, and you might want to tie it down in your policy so that only certain devices can get to it, but that's a separate subject matter. So you can see here that we set the duration of the session. We now have a countdown timer, which is quite handy, and we can copy a link to a clipboard to launch the session, or we can just open the link here. Now we are prompted with an SSH window, and if I log in, you can see here that we are now in the Fortinet CLI. Get system status, it gives us information about the device. Okay, so if we exit out of this, we're now no longer logged in, but we still have the SSH session, and we can either minimize this down or we can just close it out. We can then choose to remove the access link. From a security perspective, it would disappear anyway or be inactive after 30 minutes, so nobody else would be able to use that link outside that 30 minutes. The final option that I'm going to show you in this video as to how you can create a remote support solution is using a cloud-based or a client-server based application that is designed to do just that, provide remote support into your environment. This method normally requires a couple of different things. It will need, for example, if this server down here, which if I highlight that in blue, the blue server is what we want to support, then this will need some kind of remote client on it. So let's just say Zoho Assist client. What we can do if we take this approach though is we can use this particular client or server, I suppose I should say, because we're coming in from the internet. Probably worth saying there's another cloud here, which if we say that's the Zoho cloud, and the traffic flow now actually goes like this. So it comes in on the internet, goes up to the Zoho service, which is this one on the right hand side, and then this server down here, the Zoho Assist client, or the server that has the Zoho Assist client installed on it, communicates back to the Zoho cloud, and then that allows the communication and effectively a clientless on the user side, or the support user I should say. All they need to do is connect to the Zoho Assist or the equivalent service, and then they can start a session from there. Now, there's two different concepts as to what you can do here. You can have remote access, and what remote access would consist of here is I would access the remote screen or share my own screen, and I would like send a link or the customer email address and then hit start now or schedule a time. That would email a link to the customer, and then the customer would then be able to give us access or give the support person access to their remote computer. That's more for like user support. But what we're more talking about in this particular requirement is that the user here needs to be able to get onto all of this kit. So the idea is that we can come in through this mechanism if we're talking about Zoho Assist, hit the Zoho Assist cloud service and connect to the server using something called unattended access. So that's what this is here, this server. It has a Zoho Assist client installed on it for unattended access as a headless PC. How we achieve unattended access is that we install the client software on the server. It can be a Linux server, a Windows server, or whatever. And it's not just Zoho Assist that does this, there's many other different applications and services that can provide this functionality. But unattended access is what you're looking for. If I go to the unattended access, and you see here that we currently have 5 different PCs or unattended access devices. This means that these 5 devices with these public IP addresses on them all have the Zoho Assist client and they have internet access. Once we have them set up, and there's a couple of other things that we need to configure on the machine depending if you're using Linux or Windows or whatever operating system. There's some other things that we need to think about, but what we really want to do is get this online so that we can then use the server as a jump box to then access this environment down here. So step 1 from a support user perspective is that we come in via Zoho Cloud or Zoho Assist, we get onto the server, and then this server is the single point that we can access all the other devices in the network and manage the network from there. So if I provide a demonstration of that, I can connect to our lab server quite easily like this. Takes a second. And you can see that we are now into the remote session. There is nobody up there at the other end of this. And we have access. You can see that we've been configuring some Palo Alto stuff and some Fortinet stuff in the lab environment, but This is really just to demonstrate how we could get in to support a customer environment. This concludes this short video on remote access options. MNB networks use these and a multitude of different other options depending on the customer requirement. This is to provide, as I said earlier in the video, remote access for projects or operational support work. I hope you enjoyed this video and it gives you some good ideas on how you can design remote access solutions in your own network. Thanks for your attention.